In today's podcast, you'll learn lots of vocabulary connected to one of our favorite topics, sleep. Finally, we can talk about a subject we know a lot about. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig.
Hi, I'm Reza.
And my name's Craig.
And with nearly 60 years of teaching between us, we'll help you improve your English and take it to the next level. So, Craig, how are you? Did you get a good night's sleep?
I did not actually, Reza. I'm feeling a bit tired. I didn't sleep very well last night. How are you?
I'm not bad. I did sleep well, so I feel quite refreshed this morning.
Well, that's good to hear. We'll get into our sleep habits a bit later. But first, where did we get the idea from to speak about sleep?
Well, it's not the first time we've had a very good idea from Pilar from France. Thank you very much for this and all your ideas, Pilar. It's a really, really good idea. In fact, we should have spoken about it before, because if you think about it, you spend a third of your life sleeping, approximately.
Exactly. I don't know why we haven't covered this topic before. We received an email from Pilar, and this is what she said. I don't remember if you've already talked about sleep phases, dreams, insomnia, etc. Did you know that until the invention of electric lights, and mostly until the Industrial Revolution, people used to sleep in 2 shifts? And between these 2 sleep stages, they used to do some work at home. They used to write and so on. And Pilar also adds, if someone's interested, she recommends a book written by Roger Ekirch, I think it is, Ekirch, La Gran Transformación del Sueño. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes at inglespodcast.com/571. So thank you, Pilar, for your suggestion. How many hours of sleep do you usually get, Reza? Do you think it's enough for your lifestyle?
Well, I'm not sure about my lifestyle, but I probably should sleep a bit more. I usually sleep about 7 hours, though occasionally I sleep 8 or 9, not very often more than that. It sounds like 8's my average. It's not. 7 is my average, but sometimes it goes up to 8 or 9. What about you?
Well, I tend to sleep about 6.5, maybe 7 if I'm lucky, but it's not uninterrupted sleep. It's really important to have constant uninterrupted sleep. So I get up maybe twice or even 3 times during the night to go to the toilet because of my age, I guess. And also sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night. I can't get back to sleep. So really the problem is not the hours I'm getting, it's the quality of the sleep that's missing for me. Be careful with the expression to go to bed. Don't say go to the bed. That's a common mistake I hear with Spanish speakers. So not go to the bed, but go to bed.
Shall we start by talking about some of those basic principles that Pilar mentioned? Maybe we could start with talking about insomnia. That's a very important thing when you're talking about sleep. So if you're a Spanish speaker, I imagine you've guessed what this word means already because it's the same in your language. The inability to sleep. For example, you can be restless. You can toss and turn. That collocation, to toss and turn, means that you move about in bed because you're unable to sleep. You toss and turn because you're restless. Craig, you said you wake up a lot. But do you toss and turn?
Yes, I'm constantly changing position. I can't get comfortable. Maybe I'm too hot. Maybe I'm too cold. So I'm constantly moving in bed and trying to find a comfortable position.
Yeah, me too. And Craig, have you ever experienced insomnia or any other symptoms as a result of jet lag?
Yes, I have. I have traveled, and when there's a time difference from one country to the next, then you think it's 11 o'clock at night, but really it's 4 a.m. or 4 p.m. So it really throws your body clock out, which means you go to bed, but you're not tired, or in the middle of the day, you're suddenly tired because in your country, it's midnight, but where you are, it's the middle of the afternoon. And I think the best thing to do is to try to stay awake in the country you're in as long as possible until it's time to go to bed, even though you're really, really tired. The mistake that I have made in the past is to sleep during the day, and then that completely throws everything out. You don't know where you are. You go to bed and you're not tired. So it takes a few days to get used to the new time. Is that your experience too?
Yes, I haven't traveled very far often, but the couple of times that I have, I'm afraid I've made the mistake that you've just mentioned. I went to bed as soon as I got there, and that threw me out. That gave me strange sleep patterns for a couple of days until I eventually started going to bed when everybody else went to bed.
Right. That's the best thing to do, I think. There's an expression called sleep deprivation. When you deprive someone of their sleep, you restrict the fact that they can sleep. So sleep deprivation is the condition of not having enough sleep. And it's often used as a kind of torture by intelligence agencies like the CIA or the FBI or MI6. These clandestine organizations that try to get information from you. They'll play very, very loud music. They'll keep you awake constantly in the hope of you giving information. So not sleeping is kind of torture. Do you know the longest time someone has gone without sleep? I'll tell you, the world record for going without sleep is 11 days. And that was set by Randy Gardner in 1964. So 11 days without sleeping. I can't imagine what that feels like. Some other fun facts about sleep. Apparently, sleep helps clean your brain because during sleep, when you're sleeping, the brain removes any waste products, including some toxins that could be linked to Alzheimer's disease. Interestingly, women tend to need slightly more sleep than men, maybe because their brains are multitasking more during the day, but women tend to sleep a bit more than men. Apparently, you can only dream about faces that you've seen. And this is fascinating. Blind people who can't see, they also dream, but they use their other senses like touch, sound, and smell, and they use those senses to dream about those things because they've never actually seen anything. There's another expression which is circadian rhythm, C-I-R-C-A-D-I-A-N, circadian rhythm, which is the body's natural 24-hour cycle of sleep and wakefulness. So if that circadian rhythm is interrupted, then obviously your body isn't healthy and it disrupts your sleep pattern.
Now, if you're of a certain age, not a young age, you would have grown up listening to REM, the music group. But there's another meaning of REM, which goes way back before that group appeared. The real meaning of REM is rapid eye movement. So REM sleep is a stage of sleep when your eyes are closed, but they're moving around very rapidly. But you don't see that because your eyelids, the bit over your eyes, are closing them, but they're moving around really quickly. And in that period of sleep, you're having very, very vivid dreams. It's when the most dreams and the most vivid dreams occur during REM sleep.
So let's look at some common vocabulary. Some of these words you may know, but some can be confusing because there are many words and expressions to describe being asleep and not being asleep, being awake, for example. So let's look at them one by one. Obviously, sleep can be a verb, it can be a noun. When you are not awake, then you are sleeping. So to sleep is the verb, it's irregular, sleep, slept, slept. And it's also a noun, a good night's sleep.
So Craig has already mentioned the word awake. He mentioned it as an adjective. When you are not sleeping, you are awake. But it can also, confusingly, be a verb. You don't often get words which are adjectives and verbs. Quite often you get a word which is a verb and a noun, like sleep, but awake isn't a noun. It's an adjective or a verb. So when it's a verb, it means to stop sleeping. For example, they awakened at dawn. Dawn is the beginning of the day. That means they stopped sleeping. They awakened. It's a verb. Compare it to the adjective. He isn't sleeping. He's wide awake now. Wide awake is a common collocation. We often put the word wide before the adjective awake, and it means completely 100% awake. There's no doubt. He's wide awake now.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Why is it wide awake? Why don't we say high awake or long awake? But those two words like to go together. Very, very awake is wide awake. There's a phrasal verb with wake, which is to wake up. So you wake up in the morning when you stop sleeping, and you can also wake someone up. Why did you wake me up? I was sleeping. Why did you make noise? Why did you wake me up? So you can put the object, the pronoun, in the middle there between the verb and the preposition. And if someone wakes you up, you are awake. To be awake, to stop sleeping.
I don't know if you noticed that Craig already used the word asleep, but let's clarify what's happening there. Maybe you thought he was saying plus sleep as two separate words, but he wasn't. It was one word. So the word ASLEEP altogether, it's one word, asleep, is an adjective, and it simply means sleeping. But here's a strange thing about the word asleep. It doesn't go with a noun. There are other adjectives like that in English. Not many, but there are some. For example, I could say to you, the baby is fast asleep. Fast asleep is the opposite of wide awake. So the word fast, as you know, means rapid. But when it collocates with asleep, it means completely, 100%, totally, very much asleep. So it's another common collocation. So the opposite of wide awake is fast asleep. The baby is fast asleep. So the final word in that sentence was asleep. Compare it to this. The sleeping cat is fat. I can't say the word asleep there because cat is a noun. I cannot say the asleep cat. I can't say that. I can say the sleeping cat, but I cannot say the asleep cat. I can say the cat is asleep. The baby is asleep. I can say the baby is sleeping. That's also good. But I cannot put the word asleep with a noun. It's an adjective which must be on its own.
And you mentioned there as a fast as in quick, going quickly. I think in this case it doesn't mean that because there's another meaning fast, which means deeply or very firm or very fixed. For example, I can say that Reza is a steadfast friend. He's very loyal. He's rock solid. He's committed as a friend. So I think when we're saying fast asleep, we're meaning very firmly asleep, very fixedly asleep.
Another very common collocation is go to sleep. So as you could probably guess, it means to start the process of sleeping. But importantly, it's intentionally. If you go to sleep, you're intentionally starting the process of sleeping. For example, I might say to you, oh, I feel really tired. I think I'm going to go to sleep. I want to sleep. It's my intention. Compare that to fall asleep. That's unintentionally starting the process of sleeping. I was so tired that while I was watching the TV, I fell asleep. It wasn't my intention. I didn't want to go to sleep. I accidentally fell asleep.
And before you fall asleep, probably you're feeling sleepy. There we have an adjective with Y at the end, sleep plus a Y, which means you're ready or you need to sleep. So it's when your eyelids, as Reza mentioned earlier, the skin in front of your eyes, they start to go down and close, and you're just drifting off to sleep. To drift off is to slowly move into the state of being asleep. So if you're sleepy, then you're ready for sleep.
Craig, from what you said earlier, it sounds like you're quite a light sleeper. Is that right?
I can be a light sleeper, yeah. It very much depends on the night, strangely enough, because some nights I am a light sleeper, but if I'm sleepy, if I'm very tired, I can be a heavy sleeper, which is the opposite. Light and heavy are opposites. So a light sleeper is someone who wakes up easily, the slightest noise, and you are awake if you're a light sleeper. Or you can be a heavy sleeper, which means you sleep very deeply and you don't wake up easily. So it depends with me what kind of day I've had, what kind of mood I'm in, what's on my mind, what I'm thinking about. What about you? Do you generally sleep lightly or heavily?
I'm quite a light sleeper. Noise and even more so light will wake me up quite easily. I like to be in total darkness if possible when I sleep.
Yeah, me too. Let's take a quick break here because I know you listen to this podcast to take your English to the next level. But what about your speaking? Is your fluency improving? Are you happy with your speaking skills? My conversation course focuses on making you a more confident and more fluent English speaker. You'll join me and a small group of motivated students, and we'll meet on Zoom and have topical discussions, role plays, debates, and presentations that will expand your vocabulary and help you express yourself effectively in English. So be proactive and take the first step towards becoming a confident and fluent English speaker. Send me an email today to craig@inglespodcast.com and I'll send you details of the next online conversation course. Thanks for listening. Now let's get back to the podcast.
Craig, do you ever have a short sleep in the middle of the day?
Oh, yes. I think if you've been in Spain for a long time, I think that's a habit that many people adopt when they come to live here. So I had no problems adopting the siesta, the very short nap, or what we might say in colloquial British English is to have a kip, K-I-P, which is a slang word for a very short sleep during the day. Now, I don't have a deep sleep after lunch, but I do like to sit in a comfortable chair, maybe listen to some music or maybe a podcast and just doze off, which means to fall asleep unintentionally perhaps and just close my eyes and have a short nap or a snooze. That's another word for a nap, S-N-O-O-Z-E, a short snooze for maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, and then I wake up feeling refreshed, have a nice cup of coffee and go back to work. What about you? Do you tend to have a nap in the middle of the day?
I used to a lot more, but now not so often, but occasionally at the weekend.
That's unusual because usually as we get older, we tend to nap more during the day.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it will come to me. When it happens to me, it's usually a case of me dozing off. To doze off, another phrasal verb, D-O-Z-E, is when you fall asleep unintentionally. So I guess you could say fall asleep. However, doze off tends to imply that it's during the day or at a time when you shouldn't sleep. Yeah?
Yeah, like on the train or a bus or something.
Yeah, so it's not your plan. You don't really want to sleep, or it's during the day, and maybe it's not a good thing. You doze off.
Now, when the weekend comes around, if it's a Saturday or a Sunday and you don't have to get up for work, perhaps you like to sleep in, or to have a lie-in. Both of those expressions mean to sleep later than usual in the morning. Now, that could be on purpose because you just want to rest more in bed, or it could be that you didn't set your alarm and you just slept longer than you would normally sleep. So to sleep in the morning or to have a lie-in, to lie in bed longer, is just to stay in bed and enjoy the weekend and get up later.
Yeah, just to stress, though, that sleep in is definitely accidental. If you sleep in, you didn't plan it. You didn't want to.
True.
Whereas to have a lie-in was planned. They're not exactly the same meaning.
Yeah, good point. Do you tend to have a lie-in on weekends?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Not Saturday because I work, but on Sunday for sure. What about you?
Not really. I usually work on weekends these days, so maybe I'll have a lie-in on a Wednesday or a Tuesday if I don't have work in the morning. So my weekends tend to be busier these days than during the week. So that's strange.
Would that be because of the conversation classes?
No, because the conversation classes tend to be in the evening, but I do have private lessons now in the mornings more. Say hello to Javier and Marvin and Paul, some students who have been preventing me having a lie-in on Saturday and Sunday morning, but I enjoy talking to them as well and giving them private lessons, so it's all good.
Now, Craig, I hope whenever you have to get up early in the morning, it doesn't interrupt you sleeping something off.
Not anymore. Not anymore. Maybe
Perhaps
in the past. Yes.
I see. So another phrasal verb, to sleep something off, is to sleep specifically in order for the effects of a substance to disappear. So above all, we use it for alcohol. Could be for drugs as well. If you've taken too many drinks, too many whiskeys going to bed, perhaps it was late at night, and so the alcohol is still affecting you quite a lot in the morning, you will need to sleep it off. You will need to sleep a bit longer to get rid of the effects of the whiskey that you had late at night.
Of course, if you sleep in or have a lie-in, it might not be due to the effects of alcohol. It might be because you stayed up or stayed up late the night before. So if you usually go to bed at 11 p.m., but for some reason you were watching Netflix until 2:30 in the morning, which has happened to me, then you're staying up late. That phrasal verb to stay up or stay up late is not going to bed at a reasonable time.
Now, the next word is very relevant to me, snore. Oh, yeah. That's a pretty good impression of every night for me. I snore. I breathe noisily while sleeping. How do I know this? Well, people have told me. That's the thing. While you're sleeping, you can't hear yourself snore, can you? But I do snore. In fact, I snore so much that I had to have an operation because of it, which partially helped me, but not 100%. I still snore quite badly.
I know you snore quite badly because even though we live in opposite neighborhoods of the city, we live miles apart. I can hear you snoring from the beach over here. So I know that you're a loud snorer, and so am I. I snore very loudly, apparently, so I've been told by my wife. Now, when you are sleeping at night, you can have a dream. You probably know that word, a series of thoughts or images that occur to you while you're sleeping. If the dream is a negative one, it's not very pleasant. It's a nightmare, nightmare, which is a frightening, upsetting, or unpleasant kind of dream. I get nightmares sometimes, do you?
Occasionally, yeah.
Do you have any recurring nightmares that you keep having the same nightmare more than once and it repeats every so often?
No, actually, I don't. Do you?
Yeah, there's one I have every so often. I haven't had it for a while, but it takes place in kind of a theatre where you'd go and see a play, and I'm in the play and I have to remember lines in the play. I have to learn some script to say in front of a big audience. And the nightmare is that as the date of the performance gets closer, I still haven't learned my lines. So I get this panic as I'm sleeping that, I need to learn this. I need to do this. And the date, it's next week. No, it's in 2 days. No, it's tomorrow. And I still don't know what I'm going to say. And there's this embarrassing situation where I'm going to be on stage and I don't know what I'm going to say. And that's my recurring nightmare.
That sounds like the nightmare of a very responsible person, the type of person who likes to try and do things properly.
We'd think so, but the nightmare is that I don't do it, that I don't learn.
But no, that's why it's a nightmare, because you feel bad about it. There's another type of person who wouldn't give a damn, but you care. It sounds to me like it's because you're a very responsible person.
Or very lazy, perhaps. It depends how you interpret dreams or nightmares, I suppose. Now, before people go to bed, very often there's a bedtime routine, some regular habits that you do before you go to sleep. Do you have a bedtime routine, Reza?
Nothing really special. The sort of things everybody does, I guess. Brush my teeth, generally just before I go to bed. Nothing else, really. Nothing in particular, no. And you?
Well, I do the normal things, wash my face, brush my teeth, take some water to bed with me. But I also like to reflect on the day that's just passed and think what I've done, and also think what I have to do the following day. And for the last year or two, I've listened to podcasts in bed. I used to read to go to sleep, but I'm out of the habit now, so I tend to listen to a podcast with someone who has a very boring, monotonous voice. And then as I said before, I drift off to sleep listening to the podcast.
Oh, there you go, listeners. If you want to sleep better, listen to our podcast at night.
I'm sure some people do. I'm sure we are a remedy for insomnia. Reza, a log, L-O-G, is a piece of wood, quite a big piece of wood. If you cut down a tree and you cut off the branches of the tree, then what you're left with is a big round log. But what's the expression to sleep like a log? What does that mean?
It means to sleep very deeply. I mean, if you think about a log, it's a big thing. There it is on the ground. It's not going to move. It's not going to do much. It's just there. It's not going anywhere. So if you sleep like a log, you're sleeping really deeply.
So to sleep like a log is an idiom. Let's look at some more idioms connected to sleep. Now, you can go to bed, or you can say, I'm going to hit the sack, S-A-C-K, which means go to bed. You can also say, I'm going to hit the hay, H-A-Y, which is kind of grass that you feed horses. And I suppose that refers to people on farms where they used to sleep in the place where they kept the horses' food, the animal food. So they'd hit the hay or they'd hit the sack. People used to sleep on sacks, didn't they, years ago?
If you say to sleep on it, it doesn't mean that you're sleeping on an object. Well, it could be, but as an idiom, it doesn't mean that. It means to delay making a decision until the next day. If you ask someone a really important question, like, could you lend me £1,000 this week? Well, I wouldn't like to say yes and no, but if you really need it, I don't know. I tell you what, let me sleep on it. I'll tell you tomorrow. I need to think about it. I'll sleep on it.
Isn't there a similar Spanish expression where they say to consult the pillow or something like that?
That's right. Something like that, isn't it? Yeah.
We don't say that in English. We'd say sleep on. I'll sleep on it. Now, if you lose sleep over something, obviously you're worried or concerned about something. But there's another idiom which is I won't lose any sleep over it, which means I won't worry about it. For example, at the moment in the world, there are lots of problems. You listen to the news or you read about geopolitics and, oh no, what's happening in the world? But we can't control what's happening. We can't control the decisions of politicians. So I think it's better that we don't lose any sleep over it. Don't let it bother you. Don't let it worry you. Don't lose sleep over it.
If you don't sleep a wink, that means you're not sleeping at all. It's always negative. You don't sleep a wink. So a wink is whenever you quickly close and open your eye, like when you've told a joke or something like that. Obviously, it's connected to sleeping in the sense of your eyes normally close when you sleep for a long time. So if you don't sleep a wink, imagine a wink is when your eyes close and open very quickly. You don't even sleep that amount of time, like half a second. So you're not sleeping at all. If you don't sleep a wink, you're not sleeping at all.
About a year ago, I had a very big argument with my neighbour. They were being very noisy and I confronted them and I said, please stop doing this. And we had quite a bad argument. But then I realised that I have to get on with my neighbour. My neighbour's not moving. So we agreed to let sleeping dogs lie. To let sleeping dogs lie means let's forget this problem. Let's not start unnecessary trouble. Let's just ignore this and move on. So if you let sleeping dogs lie, then you forget any problems that you've had in the past with someone.
Now, I'm sure you won't be surprised at the next idiom, to sleep like a baby.
I'm surprised because babies usually cry all the time.
Ooh, that's a fair point, yeah. But the thing is, when babies do sleep, they seem to sleep so peacefully.
True.
And so soundly. If you sleep soundly, it's a bit like being fast asleep. If you're sound asleep, you're sleeping in very deeply. It's a very deep sleep that you're in. So if you sleep like a baby, you have no trouble at all sleeping.
Maybe it depends on the baby. Some babies will probably be crying all night. If you go to bed, or when you go to bed. In English, you can say to somebody, good night, I'm going to bed, I'm going to hit the sack. And someone might say to you, okay, sleep tight. T-I-G-H-T, sleep tight. What does that mean? That means you're wishing the person a good night's sleep. It's like saying, sweet dreams, have lovely dreams. And this idea of sleeping tight comes from when we used to have beds made of ropes, and we used to have to pull the ropes really tight before we went to bed. So it's kind of like making the bed, but from ropes, pulling them tight. So sleep tight means have a good night's sleep and have a good rest.
And now, a minute ago, we used the word wink in an idiom, not sleep a wink. There's another one with wink. To catch 40 winks is to take a short nap. Yeah, this word nap we said was to sleep for a short time in the middle of the day. So if you catch 40 winks, you're going to have a snooze, a nap, a siesta. Some people say catch some Zs, or probably Zs, they would say, because it's more American than British English. To catch some Zs, that's the letter Z or Z, is to sleep or to take a nap. I guess it comes from the idea that in comics, they normally represent people sleeping by writing the letter Z, don't they?
Yeah, you see the cartoon and it's zzz when someone's sleeping. Catch some Zs. If you have trouble sleeping, sometimes it might be a good idea to count sheep. You're visualizing sheep, you're imagining sheep in your head and you're counting them as they're jumping over a fence, for example, and that might help you to go to sleep because it's a mental distraction. You're focusing on something that's really quite boring, these sheep walking around in the field, and you're counting them, and that might help you to fall asleep.
And the last idiom we have for you is pillow talk. So a pillow is that object where you put your head on the bed to sleep at night. So pillow talk is, can you imagine talking to someone? Obviously, it's someone who you have a very intimate relationship with, I presume, because if not, what are you doing sleeping together?
What are they doing on the pillow next to you?
Right?
You've got into the wrong bed.
Yes, that's the only possible excuse. That's the perfect place to talk about intimate things, because if you're intimate enough with someone to sleep with them, well, you're intimate enough to talk about just about anything. So pillow talk is that intimate conversation shared by partners in bed, perhaps when their head's on the pillow, for example.
Do you like to daydream?
Yes, I do sometimes. And I think it's really sad that people don't daydream as much as they used to. They don't, and I blame internet for it, above all smartphones. Why daydream if you can get the smartphone to do it for you? Some silly people think. But I say, use your brain. Daydream. You should daydream. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. Daydreaming, dreaming during the day, just letting your mind wander and being imaginative and just not trying to control what you're thinking. Just let your mind take you where it wants to is a lovely thing to do. And I think as we grow up, and we get to be very responsible adults, we forget how nice it is to daydream.
Craig, you mentioned your dream earlier, the recurrent dream about you not having lines prepared for the theatre. Do you think that has a meaning? Do you think dreams have a meaning? Is it trying to tell you something deeper, or is it a synonym for something?
I don't know. I don't think people really know. I mean, it's been said by people who study this that it is some kind of subconscious thought, these thoughts that are going on in our heads. But I don't think anyone's really sure. People say it could be emotional processing, that we're also cleaning our minds like we clean the hard drive of a computer. We're consolidating our memory. We're changing short-term memory into long-term memory. But I don't think people ever really know. What's your thoughts?
I think the same. I think no one can ever say for sure. I believe they probably have some kind of meaning, but you'll never find out exactly what they mean.
Yeah. So do you have any advice for listeners of how to get to sleep? If anyone out there is suffering from insomnia and they can't get to sleep, what should they do?
Well, if counting sheep doesn't work, and I've tried it and it didn't work for me, I suggest simply having a nice herbal tea half an hour before you go to bed, but a herbal tea which is supposed to relax you. So don't have a herbal tea with a stimulant in it, with caffeine or something like that. Have something like chamomile that's said to make you feel sleepy or something like that. Have you tried that?
I haven't, and I know that a lot of my sleep problems come from the fact that I have a lot of screen time before I go to bed. So I'm either working at the computer just before going to bed, or maybe I'm watching a film or looking at my phone. So I think stopping that half an hour or maybe an hour before bedtime is a good idea. Reading a book usually helps to calm me and center me before going to bed. And also meditation. I like to meditate sometimes, just to lie in bed and try not to let my monkey mind think of all different things, like what I did today and what I'm doing tomorrow and everything that's on my mind, just to relax and try to focus on breathing, focus on the breath going inside your nose and outside your nose. And that usually helps to put me to sleep.
If you have trouble sleeping, one thing you could do, I sometimes do it, is to listen to calming, peaceful music. And I came across a choral piece recently. Choral means with a choir. Just by chance a few years ago. And I instantly loved it. And I quite often listen to it. It's one of the most beautiful pieces I've heard in recent years. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. When you get some peace and quiet at night and you're alone and feeling a bit sleepy, perhaps, that's the time to listen to this piece of music. It's simply called Sleep by a composer called Eric Whittaker. It lasts about 5 minutes. Give it a go, see what you think. I think it's a really beautiful piece.
So it's on YouTube. I'll put a link in the show notes so that you can go listen. The show notes can be found at inglespodcast.com/571. And now it's your turn to practice your English. Do you have problems getting to sleep, or do you sleep like a log? We'd like to know if you're a light sleeper or a heavy sleeper. So why don't you get in touch and tell us about your sleep habits to practice some of the vocabulary in today's podcast. Reza, how can people reach us?
Well, the easiest way probably is to leave an audio message. There's a link in the show notes to speakpipe.com/inglespodcast. And through SpeakPipe, you can leave a message of up to 90 seconds. But Craig, what if someone prefers to write?
Very easy. You can write to me at Craig, that's my name, CRAIG, at inglespodcast.com. And to reach Reza, write to belfastreza, REZA, at gmail.com. And we remind you that if you're a Spanish speaker and you want to improve your English with free and paid resources, why not visit the Mansion Inglés website at mansioningles.com. There you'll find paid products and you can browse the online store at store.mansioningles.net.
As always, we'd like to say thank you to all our Patreon supporters. If you're interested, there's a link in the show notes about joining the program. And as a way of saying thanks to people who join the program and sponsor us with a donation, we give them instant access to audio transcriptions. And as an added bonus, some live Zoom chats with Craig so that you can practice your speaking. As I said, we thank all our Patreon sponsors, but we haven't got enough time to say everybody's name. So as usual, we'll mention the most recent sponsors who've joined us this month. Who are they, Craig?
Only one person has joined this month, Reza, and that is friend of the show, Javier Toro. So hello and thank you, Javier. And of course, it's a huge thank you to everybody who's supporting the show on Patreon. Reza, what's next week?
An interesting topic, chauffeurs and limousine drivers.
Look forward to podcasting with you about that topic next week, Reza. So until then, thank you for listening, everybody. Have a wonderful week. Until next time, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later. And if you'd like to help us, we would really appreciate you mentioning the show to your friends and family so that more people can listen.